August 1996. Still working at Frame Art, being a picture framer. Still have nothing else to report regarding August of 1996. I have no idea what I was doing with myself at that time. So let's jump right into the books. There's a good long list of books that I read in August of 1999 and 1996. Excuse me. We're starting with The Sandman, Book of Dreams, edited by Neil Gaiman and Ed Kramer. This is an anthology of stories based in the Sandman universe from DC, Vertigo Comics, all created by Neil Gaiman. And you've got authors like Nancy A. Collins, Tad Williams, Gene Wolfe, Caitlin R. Kiernan, bunch of other people writing stories about Morpheus and the rest of the Endless, and just, again, different stories that take place. And it's a wide range of stories. Some are really good, some not so good. Typical anthology stuff. But if you're a fan of Sandman, I'd say pick it up and read it. It's a good book. Next, we have the Dechronization of Sam Magruder. The Dechronization of Sam Magruder by George Gaylord Simpson. Now, apparently Simpson was it was huge in the paleontology world. He died in 1984, but he was apparently a big, big name. 10 years after his death, his daughter found this manuscript, and it's the story of a Sam Magruder in the 22nd century, and somehow he is thrown back in time to the late Cretaceous period, and he's the only human around. There's dinosaurs. He's got to survive, and he's keeping a diary or a journal, basically, on stone tablets. And the story kind of jumps back and forth between him and the 22nd century, where archaeologists or whatever are reading his journal. Short little, I don't know if it's novella sized, but interesting story. All right, then we have The Pistolier by James Carlos Blake, and this is a fictionalized story of John Wesley Hardin, the outlaw, and it's told from many, many different points of view. It's basically, I believe, a bunch of different people sharing their recollections of John Wesley Hardin. So some people paint him as a hero, some people paint him as a horrible outlaw, but it is fiction. This isn't a non-fiction book, so I guess it leaves you to make up your mind on what kind of person John Wesley Hardin was. Old Westy. He was an Old West outlaw. Let's see. Then we have Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk, Doomsday Book 1, Rampage, by Danny Fingeroth and Eric Fine. Or it's possibly Rampage, Doomsday Book 1. So this is part of a trilogy, and Doctor Doom's behind the scenes in this one. I don't know how prominent he is, but he's got Hydra, possibly AIM, working to make him an army of Hulks. And so Bruce Banner, I believe, gets kidnapped so they can work on him. But Spider-Man the Black Cat's in this. He has to team up with the Hulk. Flash Thompson is one of the test subjects, but there's like this army of Hulks running around New York, and our heroes have to stop them. And this is going to lead into, I think, the second book. Spider-Man teams up with Iron Man, and then I don't remember the third book. We'll get to it eventually. But part of that 90s whole run, Marvel was just printing novels like crazy. And I enjoyed them. Let's see, where do we go? All right, getting confused by my own list. Chance by Robert B. Parker. And this one is about there's this a mafia princess, is what the description calls her, Shirley Meeker, and her husband is missing. Her fiance, husband, whatever. And Spencer and Hawk are hired to find him. Her father wants him found. And, it seems like they just want him found because he's missing and we love him and we want him back. But there's going to be more to it. Spencer and Hawk end up in Vegas trying to find this guy and figure out exactly what's going on. It's Spencer. It's pretty good. Cage of Night by Ed Gorman. This is a horror, thriller, suspense kind of thing. We've got this character. He's 21. He's come back from the army to his hometown. Things are kind of the same, maybe not quite the same. But he goes to this party and he meets this 18-year-old homecoming queen, Cindy. Falls for her, but she has a boyfriend. But then weird stuff starts happening. Murders are happening. Weird things. Cindy says she's hearing voices from a well. What the hell's going on? Ed Gorman, fantastic writer of straight up mysteries, westerns, suspense, and horror. It's pretty good stuff. It's pretty interesting. All right. Then we have... I don't know why I just wrote it down this way, but it's just The Siege by Peter David. But this is a Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Deep Space Nine novel. And there are murders happening. Well, hold on. First of all, so Deep Space Nine is a space station that's set up by a wormhole, essentially. They have to shut down the wormhole because of graviton emissions or something. So while the wormhole is shut down and they're basically isolated, murders start happening on the space station. Commander Sisko and Odo, the security chief, are trying to solve these murders. And then you've got sort of that trope of, I think, the Cardassians and Edamans, another race of aliens, show up and they're both demanding, hand over the murderer to us or we'll destroy you, that kind of thing. And so Sisko and Odo have to, solve the murders and find the killer. But it might tie into Odo's hidden origins. Was never a huge Deep Space Nine fan, but I am a huge Peter David fan. So possibly the only Deep Space Nine book I read. And I'm sure it was enjoyable for Deep Space Nine because it was written by Peter David. I just read that he has some serious health problems, and there's a lot of stuff going on to try and raise money for his hospital bills and things. So if you're a fan of Peter David, look into that. There's a GoFundMe campaign, I believe. Anyway, all right, so now I actually have this book. Next up, and again, don't know why I didn't write all of this down. What I have written down is The Man Who Stole Tomorrow by David Michelinie. But it's The Avengers, The Man Who Stole Tomorrow. Number 10 in the old 70s Marvel novels. 1979. I dig that cover. So it's the Avengers versus Kang. And this lineup of the Avengers, Iron Man, Thor, the Vision, the Beast. So exciting. Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Captain America. They're flung into the future to fight Kang. Great time travel stuff. My favorite version of Iron Man. Can't see it very well. I love that armor. I love the Beast. I love these covers. Just exciting comic book Avengers adventure. And of course, Kang, making a big name for himself right now. Looks like he's going to be the next big bad in the MCU. All right, then we have, now I wrote everything down for this one. Star Wars, Young Jedi Knights, Heirs of the Force by Kevin J. Anderson and Rebecca Moesta. Not sure how you pronounce her name. And this is, I think it's a young adult book if I remember correctly. But it focuses on Jason and Jaina Solo, the twins, who are the children of Han Solo and Princess Leia. And I believe they're at the Jedi Academy, and they're exploring the jungle around the academy and find an old busted TIE fighter, a wrecked, crashed, whatever TIE fighter from the original Battle of the Death Star. And it's a stranded stormtrooper who's going to help them rebuild the TIE fighter. But it's basically the adventures of Jason and Jaina. I don't know if I read. We'll find out as I go through this list with you if I read any more in that series. All right, next up, another book that I have, the only other one on the list, but it is Pebble in the Sky by Isaac Asimov. The only reason I actually have this copy of this book is I got some books from eBay, the Micronauts trilogy, and the seller included this. They threw this in there with it. But this is the third book in the Empire series, and it's about a guy named Joseph Schwartz, and he's just strolling down the streets of Chicago one day and suddenly disappears, and he is swept way, way, way into the future, to the heyday of the Empire. And he's from just post-war Chicago. World War II, of course. So he's thrust way into the future. He's still on Earth. He finds out that Earth is just considered a shithole by the rest of the Empire, the Galactic Empire, and they actually kind of hate Earth because Earthlings claim, the people on Earth claim, well, this is where people came from. And the rest of the Empire's like, oh, screw you, you're scum. But it also turns out that because of the state of the planet and such, people are just dead at 60. They're killed, dead, 60 at 60. Joseph Schwartz is 62. How he's going to survive? How he's going to deal with being thrust so far into the future? But book 3 of 3 of the Galactic Empire. But of course, it ties in with Foundation and the robots and all that stuff. But it's kind of cool that this guy just threw this book in. And so I actually have a copy of it. I need to rebuild my Asimov collection. All right, only 2 more books. So the penultimate book for August of 1996 is Hiroshi by Carrie Osborne. It's the first in I believe it was just a trilogy. And this is a mix of sort of samurai lore and science fiction. So it is science fiction. It takes place in the future. Our main character is Lacey Campbell, and she is studying the ways of the samurai and, Zen and all of that sort of thing. And her master dies, and so she's looking for her place, for her purpose, and she goes, she's on Earth, and she travels to this distant planet called Rune, where she's, again, looking for her destiny and has adventures and things. And I don't recall my feelings on this. It mixes a couple things I like. I like mashups a lot. And of course, I mentioned in my last video in this series that I'm a fan of fiction, of the feudal Japan and samurai nature. You throw that in with some science fiction, I'm in. I'm going to try it. I'm going to check it out. But I don't recall. And again, we'll see if the other books in the series are eventually on this list. Finally, the last book is, and again, so inconsistent in writing these things down. What I have written down is A Rock and a Hard Place by Peter David, but it's a Star Trek The Next Generation novel. I don't know why I didn't write that part down. But as I said, it's Star Trek The Next Generation, A Rock and a Hard Place, Peter David. Excuse me. There's a planet that's being terraformed, and the Enterprise is told they need help. So Commander Riker goes down to help the terraforming of this planet. There's a replacement for his position on the Enterprise who may be unstable, may not be suited for the job. And so you got that going on the Enterprise, and then down on the planet, you got Riker dealing with not just the natural hardships of terraforming a planet, but also, it seems, there might be some sentient, I wanted to say human, but it could be aliens. So it's sentient problems as well that Riker has to deal with. Now, I'm a bigger fan of Next Generation than I am of Deep Space Nine, and I think Peter David does great stuff when he's writing Next Generation. So I'm sure I enjoyed this book very much. And once again, if you care to, help out Peter David. All right, so that's it. That is what I read in August. That looks like 11, 12 books. Quite a bit. August 1996. And my question for this video is, I think this might have come up before. I don't remember. I should write these questions down so I stop repeating myself. But what are your feelings on time travel stories? I think that's what I'm going to go with here. Do you like them? Do you not like them? They tend to have sort of built-in paradoxes, and I know that kills the story for some people. I don't mind. I am a huge fan of a well-written and interesting time travel story. And whether it's... And do you consider a time loop time travel? There's your secondary question. We'll get into that in a second. But, a well-written time travel story. I love The Terminator. Yes, there's paradoxes in that movie, but it's such a fantastic movie. I don't remember H.G. Wells' Time Machine that much, but I'll have to reread it. But, it's a classic for a reason. I like a well-written, entertaining time travel story. And I guess I asked this question because of the dechronization of Sam Magruder, or whatever it was called. But we also have that Kang Avengers story, which has time travel in it. So I guess it's an appropriate story. Time loop, secondary question. Is a time loop time travel? Let's take Groundhog Day. Is Bill Murray's character time traveling? He's stuck in the same 24-hour period. Is that considered time travel, or is it its own thing? Or Happy Death Day. Love that movie. And so, yeah, I like time loop stuff as well. Butterfly Effect, is that a time travel movie? I mean, he's basically traveling in time. I like that movie as well. Really, really like the first movie. I've never seen the second movie because I've heard it's horrible. And I think the third movie does some pretty interesting stuff with the concept. But Butterfly Effect, the original, I really like that movie. So yes, I'm a fan of time travel stuff, time loops, time manipulation, all that crazy stuff. What about you? What do you think? Do you like time travel books, time travel movies? Is a time loop story a time travel story? Do we throw time manipulation in there? I've recently talked to somebody at work about there's some movies, there's stories of people that can stop time. There's at least one movie, I can't remember if it was made into a series, and I can't remember what it was called, but there's like a watch. And the owner of the watch, when they hit the button on it, I think it's just a pocket watch or a stopwatch, they hit the button on it and all time stops except for them. Is that time travel? Or just time manipulation? Is there a difference? Let's get into the talk, the time travel talk. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here on my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd care to follow me on the social media, my Twitter is at Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That's all I've got for you this week. So until next week, read more books.